Hi folks, this is Cliff Macklin back with you. I wanted to continue and share with you the rest of my surprise meeting and conversation with Colonel John Glenn when I was 18 years old, June 1962. This was a few months after he had come back from his historic outer space flight. Now, the reason why this is so important, why I wanted to share it with you, is in my last video I talked about the importance of you as leaders becoming mentors for young people and sharing your cultural capital, because I really think our country is dying slowly because the knowledge, the values that you have as successful business people, successful Americans, is being lost. And it's particularly being lost because those young people who come from backgrounds that are not typical of the American middle class are not being taught those values, and they're not buying into the system. And bit by bit, because that segment of the population has a higher birth rate than middle class Americans, the business people, it's not going to be too long before those values are lost and before our country, frankly, is taken over by people who don't have the values which made America great. It's not politically correct to say this, but it is the truth. Now, in my meeting with Colonel Glenn, I'd said to him, my parents had really kind of just tried to discourage me from becoming an aeronautical engineer, because at the time they said they didn't know any colored aeronautical engineers. Colonel Glenn said to me, I know your parents love you, but they don't know what they're talking about. He went on to describe his relationship with Chappie Whiteman, who was a Tuskegee Airman hero, World War II hero, Korean War, and one of the top aeronautical engineers and test pilots in the United States. He and Colonel Glenn worked together, flew together, so he knew him very well. And he basically said, look, when you work and you discipline yourself and you study and you have long-term goals to become the best at whatever it is you seek to do, nothing can stop you, and there's always lots of room at the top, because there are very few people who are that excellent, who have that level of excellence, who have that drive to be excellent, to have the discipline to do those things, to be successful, that most other people are unwilling to do. And ergo, they don't realize that top of the pyramid level of success. He had been working on a speech that he was going to be giving to Congress. He stopped working on that speech, and for the next 2 hours on our flight to Washington, D.C., he mentored me. He asked me questions about the classes I was taking, what kind of science classes I was taking, whether I was taking physics, what type of mathematics classes I was taking, what level I was taking these classes at. He wanted to get an idea of my work ethic. Did I have a job aside from going to school? What other disciplines did I follow? What other responsibilities did I have? And he basically told me that if I wanted to be the best, I had to have the discipline, the emotional discipline, the mental discipline, the work ethic. He told me I had to take courses that most other people would not be willing to take because they would have a reputation for being too difficult. And most people, unfortunately, do seek the path of least resistance. And so they don't really choose the path that will take them to the pinnacle of success. 2 hours he coached me. Now, there are those of you who will say, well, what you is, I don't have the time to do it. If Colonel Glenn had the time to stop working on a speech to Congress and spend 2 hours with me, coaching me, you have the time. Now, what did that mean? Now, first, I ultimately did not decide to become an aeronautical engineer. Instead, I ultimately decided to go into accounting. Went into accounting, got a master's in finance, got an MBA, specialized in foreign trade finance, investment banking, ultimately became a portfolio manager, running my own company, managing accounts for high net worth individuals. Now, that's the path that I took, and I did that for over 30 years, retiring shortly after I turned 65, sort of at the top of my game. I've had a very, very good life. Today I sit on a couple of different corporate boards, primarily focusing on healthcare and the finances and strategic planning for hospitals. That's what I do. But in addition to that, I mentor 5 other young people. The oldest I've been mentoring for over 10 years. They're both honor students on full scholarship to our local university, University of Nevada, Reno. The youngest is 7. Father doing a very long term in prison. Basically, he'd been raised to be a thug. He's been with me for 4 years. He's an excellent student. He's not violent. He has excellent manners. If you were to meet him, you would think that this kid had been born into one of the finest families in the United States, which is not the case. But I've mentored him. So, you want to make a difference? You want to make a difference beyond the influence you say you have on your children? And again, we know that middle-class people do not have enough children. They don't have enough children to replace themselves, which also means that their cultural capital is not being passed on in the way that it should. Now, you want to have a great legacy, pass on your your cultural capital, then I highly recommend look for a young person who is interested in what you do. Pay attention. Look for those young people, particularly who may not have a father or mother, who don't have an extended family, who aren't getting the types of discipline, love, and guidance that hopefully you have enjoyed in the way that I enjoyed when I was growing up. So, that's my marching orders for you. You want to make this country great. You want to perpetuate our cultural, technical, political dominance in the world. Then you have to make sure you pass on those values of hard work, discipline, planning, focus, execution, duty, concern for the community, civility in your relationships with other people, whom you may not agree with, but you treat them with respect and dignity in the same way that you expect to be treated. Those are the things that have made this country great. Teaching young people to think logically, not emotionally, logically. Those are the things that have made us a great nation, that put us on the top in terms of scientific research and breakthroughs. I don't care whether you call yourself a Democrat or Republican, liberal, moderate, or whatever. Get rid of all those isms. Focus on facts and teach young people to focus on facts and make decisions based on facts. All right. I hope you got it. I hope you take this assignment. I know it's a tough one, and I know in many instances it will not be a politically correct or popular one, but it's what will save our country. If we don't do it, if we don't pass on our cultural capital, you can guarantee our country's going down. Nothing will save it. Every great nation that failed to continue those values, which have allowed it to rise to greatness out of the vast mire of human mediocrity, every great nation that abandoned those values went down. Every great nation that didn't pass those values on went down. Okay? I hope this wasn't too serious for you, but I hope you do it. You take care.